She said it while I was sitting right there. I'm very available today. And then she laughed, not at me, not with me, but like I wasn't even in the room. The fork in my hand didn't make it back to the plate. I remember just holding it midair while her voice kept echoing in my head like an accidental voicemail I couldn't delete. He laughed too. That stupid kind of laugh guys do when they know they've just been handed permission. Open door, no consequences, green light kind of laugh. The worst part? She didn't even look at me after she said it. No wink. No playful nudge. No just joking glance. Just full eye contact with him, the guy she ran into at the wine bar she'd insisted we go to, even though we were supposed to have sushi across town. Said she had a craving for something different. Yeah, different. It wasn't just the sentence. It was the way she said it. Like she was selling something. Herself. I should have said something then. I should have called her out. But instead, I just sat there, staring at the side of her face while she tucked her hair behind her ear and leaned in closer to his cologne-soaked blazer. I felt like the third wheel on my own date. So, I did what I always do. I swallowed it. Not the food. I hadn't even tasted it yet. Just the feeling. The embarrassment. The boiling under my ribs. She didn't notice. Or she pretended not to. Honestly, I don't know which is worse. He said something about how some people just aren't meant to be tied down forever. She sipped her wine and said, exactly. He looked at me like I was the waiter. I wanted to pour the rest of my water over his smug little haircut. Instead, I smiled. I waited. I bided my time. Until she got up to go to the restroom, casually placing her hand on his shoulder as she walked by. The same hand that used to clutch mine when she was nervous around strangers. She disappeared down the hallway, still laughing at something he'd said. And that's when I saw her, not my wife. Not the person I married. But the version she thought she could become when no one was looking. And if she could become someone new for a night, then maybe I could too. When Ivy came back from the restroom, she looked surprised to find me chatting with the bartender. I wasn't just nursing my drink anymore. I was leaning casually on the counter, making conversation. Laughing, even. With a stranger. A woman. The irony? I wasn't even trying to make her jealous. Not really. I just needed to feel like I wasn't invisible for once. And Daphne, the bartender, she asked me about my watch. That's it. A compliment. But you'd think I was reciting poetry the way Ivy's smile twitched when she saw us. Oh, you're up here now? She asked, sliding back onto her stool like nothing had happened. Yeah, I replied. Figured I'd make myself available. The words hit like a dart thrown right between her perfectly lined eyes. She froze for half a second, just long enough for me to know I'd drawn blood. Not physically, obviously, but the emotional kind. The kind she was used to inflicting, not receiving. Ivy recovered fast, of course. She always does. Well, she said coolly. Hope you're having fun. Then she turned to Tyler. Yes, that Tyler, the cologne sponge from earlier. And said, shall we get another bottle? At that point, I didn't care if the whole bar was watching. I grabbed my drink, tipped Daphne, and walked toward the far corner where there were high tops and a better view of the piano guy. 2 minutes later, a woman in a denim jacket and red lipstick passed my table and smiled at me. And I don't mean a polite smile. I mean the kind that starts conversations. Normally, I would have looked away or pretended I didn't see it. I would have stayed loyal to a fault. But I wasn't in the mood to be faulted anymore. You here alone? She asked, bold as daylight. No, I said. But I might as well be. She laughed. That sounds familiar. Her name was Natalie. She was there for her friend's birthday, but hated the crowd they came with. She asked what I did for a living. I told her I managed a self-storage facility and expected the usual awkward silence. But she actually seemed curious. I could feel my shoulders physically relax. It had been months since someone looked at me like I mattered. Across the bar, I could feel Ivy watching us. I didn't look directly at her, but I knew. That sixth sense you develop when you've lived beside someone long enough to know when their entire mood shifts by the way they breathe. 10 minutes passed. Then she was suddenly at our table. Lenard, can we talk? Ivy asked, ignoring Natalie completely. Sure, I said, standing slowly. But just so you know, I'm still very available. Her jaw clenched. We stepped outside onto the quiet patio. The door closed behind us with a thump, sealing us into a space where her lipstick lies didn't echo as much. What are you doing? She hissed. I could ask you the same. You're embarrassing me. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was pathetic. You're embarrassed? You said you were very available, while holding court with a guy who hasn't blinked since he saw your legs. That was a joke, she snapped. You know I joke like that. No, you used to joke like that with me. She didn't answer, just crossed her arms and looked away like the victim, like I had started the whole thing. It was so twisted I almost apologized out of habit. But I didn't. Instead, I said, if you're done pretending, I'd like to finish my drink. Then I walked back inside and sat back down next to Natalie, who looked a little stunned, but still smiled when I returned. Ivy didn't follow me in. She stood outside for at least 5 minutes, just pacing. When she finally came back in, her heels clicked like gunshots across the floor. She went straight to the bar, ordered a drink I'd never seen her order before, and didn't look at me once. Tyler had moved on to a group of 20-somethings near the jukebox. And me? I was sitting next to a woman who didn't know my flaws yet, and for the first time in a long time, I wasn't rushing to list them. But deep down, I knew this was just the beginning. Ivy wasn't the type to lose control without taking someone else down with her. And I had just dared her to try. I didn't plan on letting things spiral that far, not at first. But once Ivy turned our marriage into performance art in front of half the bar, I stopped playing the old role she kept me in. And the moment I stepped off script, something in her snapped. It's like she didn't want me, but God forbid anyone else did. Natalie, bless her, clearly had no idea what drama she was walking into. She was telling me about her volunteer work at an animal shelter and how they once had a pig named Barbara Streisand when Ivy stormed back into the scene. No warning, no build-up, just a sudden, fiery entrance like she was walking into a courtroom rather than a bar. She came straight to our table, grabbed my wrist, and said, loudly, like she wanted everyone to hear, "I'm not done with you." I calmly put down my glass, looked at her, then at Natalie. "Excuse me," I said. "This will be dramatic." Natalie smirked like she'd seen this kind of soap opera before and simply said, "I'll be here." Outside again. Same patio. Same tension. But this time, Ivy didn't pace. She stood perfectly still, arms crossed, lips pressed together like she was holding in a scream. The silence stretched so long I almost asked if she was rebooting. Finally, she spoke. "You're humiliating me." I exhaled slowly, like someone bracing to reopen an old wound. "Humiliating you? You flirted with a guy for an hour and called yourself very available. I laughed once with a woman, and suddenly I'm the villain? You don't get to punish me for one comment." "One comment," I scoffed. "Ivy, you left the table for 10 minutes and made a scene. You've been treating me like a placeholder for months, and the second I show a shred of confidence, you act like I've cheated on you." Then came her nuclear line, the one that made me realize how far gone she was. "You don't deserve to flirt with anyone." Those exact words. Not because we're married, not because it hurt her feelings, but because she genuinely believed I didn't have the right. I blinked. "I'm sorry," I said, voice low. "Could you repeat that?" She didn't flinch. "You heard me." And in that moment, every pathetic, whispered question I'd ever asked myself. Am I too boring? Too soft? Not good enough for her? Every one of them was confirmed. I wasn't her husband. I was her employee. A silent, reliable assistant who handled her bills, folded her laundry, and existed in the background while she played out fantasies she thought she deserved. And I'd had enough. "Ivy," I said, slowly and clearly, "you don't get to keep me on a leash you never planned to hold. You can either admit what you're doing, or I'll stop pretending this marriage is anything more than a tax bracket." Her nostrils flared. "You think you're strong enough to leave me?" It wasn't a question. It was a dare. And right then, the bar door opened behind us. Natalie stepped out, holding 2 drinks. She paused, seeing us in the middle of what must have looked like a hostage negotiation. Ivy turned to her, venom in her voice. "He's married." Natalie didn't miss a beat. "And you're losing him." The look on Ivy's face? I wish I could frame it. She looked like someone who'd spent years arranging pieces on a chessboard and suddenly realized the other player had stopped playing her game and just flipped the table. I took the second drink from Natalie's hand and thanked her. We went back inside. Ivy didn't follow this time. She stood outside in the dark, alone. And that's when it hit me. She wasn't afraid of losing me. She was afraid of losing control. I thought that night at the bar would be the end of it. The awkward scene, the cold silence on the drive home, maybe a petty argument that would drag into the weekend. But what actually happened was much stranger, much quieter, which, in some ways, made it worse. We didn't go home together. Ivy left without a word. I only realized she was gone when I turned to say something and saw her bar stool empty, her purse missing, her drink untouched. 1 minute she was sulking by the wall, glaring at me from across the room. The next, gone. At first, I assumed she'd stepped outside again. Maybe to call a friend and complain about how I'd embarrassed her. But after 10 minutes passed, then 15, I went to check the parking lot. Her car was gone. No text. No call. Not even a dramatic goodbye. Just gone. I stood there under the flickering streetlight like an idiot, holding a half-finished cocktail and watching my breath cloud in the air like I was in some black-and-white indie film. For the first time in years, she didn't wait for me, didn't demand I follow. She just vanished, and for reasons I couldn't explain, that terrified me more than any fight we could have had. Back inside, Natalie offered me a ride home. I told her I'd call a rideshare instead, not because I didn't want the company, but because I suddenly felt like I had no idea what Ivy was capable of, and I didn't want to drag anyone else into the fallout. The ride home was silent, except for the driver's podcast, something about how wild horses sense storms hours before they hit. I stared out the window and realized I hadn't received a single message. No, where are you? No, come home. No, we need to talk. The apartment was dark when I walked in. Her shoes weren't by the door. Her coat wasn't on the hook. The thermostat was set to 62, which she never tolerated. It was like she'd left in a rush, or maybe hadn't planned on coming back at all. I stood in the kitchen for a while, listening, hoping I'd hear keys in the lock, hoping I'd hear her voice, and as much as I hated to admit it, hoping she was okay. By midnight, I gave in and texted her. Me. Hey, are you all right? No response. At 2 a.m., I texted again. Me. Ivy, seriously. You don't have to talk, but please just tell me you're safe. Nothing. I called twice. Straight to voicemail. And here's the thing. She's pulled cold shoulders before. She slammed doors and locked herself in the bathroom. But this was not her playbook. I didn't sleep. Not really. I kept checking the front door, expecting it to swing open at any moment and for her to start another lecture about how I'd humiliated her. But the apartment stayed silent. I ended up scrolling through old photos on my phone, wondering when exactly things started to rot beneath the surface. The next morning, I called her mother. She hadn't heard from Ivy. Neither had her sister. I didn't call her coworkers. I didn't want to look that desperate. But I checked our shared bank account. No charges since she left the bar. That's when the panic started. I called hotels. I checked hospitals. I even considered reporting her missing. But something held me back. Some voice in my head saying, don't give her the satisfaction. Because maybe this was her way of proving a point. That she could disappear. That I wasn't the center of her world. But by that night, a full 24 hours since she'd walked out, I found something. Her tablet. She almost never used it. It stayed in a drawer in the bedroom. But I'd remembered she once left her iMessage app synced on there. And curiosity, no, let's be honest, paranoia, got the better of me. I opened the app, and there it was. A conversation. Not with a friend. Not with her sister. With Tyler. Ivy. I'm not going home tonight. He thinks he's clever now. Tyler. Good. Let him squirm. Come here. I've got that wine you like. Ivy. Just remind me I'm not crazy for doing this. Tyler. You're not. He needed to be reminded you have options. I stared at the screen, hands shaking. Not because she cheated. Not yet, at least. But because of the way she spoke about me. Like I was some obstacle. Some lesson she needed to teach. Like I was the child in the room, and she was the one holding the ruler. It wasn't about love. It wasn't even about attraction. It was about power. And she had no idea I'd just taken it back. I stared at the screen for longer than I should have. Every instinct in my body was screaming to throw the tablet against the wall. But I didn't. I couldn't. The fury froze me in place. Not because I was afraid of what I was seeing, but because a darker realization was beginning to settle. She wanted me to find this. Maybe not the tablet itself, but the truth behind it. The breadcrumbs. Ivy was never careless. She was calculated. And this was theater. I tapped the screen again, scrolling further back in the conversation. It went on longer than I expected. Days. Weeks. Small talk at first. Then it picked up after a meeting she said she forgot to tell me about. One line stood out. Ivy. He's gotten boring. Predictable. He doesn't challenge me anymore. I was boring. Predictable. I worked 60 hours a week so she could quit her job and find herself. I handled bills, errands, birthday gifts for her family. I planned our last anniversary dinner while she posted filtered selfies in the bathroom. And now I was the one who didn't challenge her? I wasn't even angry anymore. Just done. Something inside me shifted. Not dramatically. Not like in movies where someone punches a mirror and has an epiphany. It was subtler. Like a single light being turned off in a room that used to feel warm. I closed the tablet, walked into the bedroom, and sat on the edge of the bed we hadn't shared properly in weeks. Her side was still cold, neat, almost untouched. She hadn't been sleeping next to me long before that night, and yet I still kept hoping she'd walk through the door, that she'd sit down and admit she'd made a mistake, that she'd say, "I'm sorry I made you feel like nothing." But she didn't. Instead, the next day around noon, I got a single text from her. "Ivy, I'll be by later to pick up a few things. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." That was it. No apology. No explanation. No effort. It was as if I was a lease expiring and she was just sending her final notice. For a full 10 minutes I stared at that message and felt something rotting inside me. Something old. Something that had been growing for years. All the nights, she picked fights for no reason. All the dinners she spent texting under the table. All the times she asked, "Can you just not be so emotional right now?" Whenever I tried to explain how small I was starting to feel, I replied, "Me? Sure. Your things will be waiting." What she didn't know, what she never expected, was that I'd already made a decision. I wasn't going to fight her. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't even going to wait around for her to twist the knife. I was going to vanish from her narrative completely. She wanted to feel powerful? Fine. Let her. But I wouldn't be there when the curtain fell. So I did what she never thought I'd do. I packed her things, all of them, neatly, carefully, clothes folded, makeup bag zipped, jewelry in its original boxes. I left it all by the front door with a sticky note that read, "Be very available for yourself now." Then I packed my things. I called my brother, Desmond, who lived 2 hours away and offered me his guest room months ago when he noticed how tired I looked at Thanksgiving. "No questions, no judgments," he'd said. "Just say the word." I said the word. By the time Ivy arrived, exactly 2 hours later, punctual as always, I was gone. What I didn't expect was the flood of calls that came afterward. First it was just one, then two. Then she tried from a different number. I didn't pick up. Then came the messages. "Ivy, where the hell are you? Ivy, you really packed up and left? Are you serious? Ivy, stop playing the victim. Ivy, come back. We need to talk." And finally, "Ivy, Tyler's not what I thought he was." That last one, that's when I realized she never wanted to be with him. Not really. She just wanted to see if she could. To know she had options. To prove that she could wreck something stable and still feel powerful. But now she was standing in the ruins she made. Alone. Meanwhile, I was sitting on my brother's porch, sipping coffee that wasn't cold for once, watching a couple of squirrels chase each other on the fence, and feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Peace. No screaming. No cold shoulder. No games. Just quiet. And the best part? She didn't know where I was. I hadn't blocked her. I wanted her to see me not replying. That was the real punishment. The silence. I didn't lose her. I let her go. 3 days. That's how long the silence lasted. Ivy stopped texting after the 3rd day. No more calls. No more tantrums in my inbox. No sudden bursts of passive-aggressive voice messages. It was just quiet, which sounds peaceful, I know, but when you've lived years in chaos, silence feels suspicious. Like the eye of a storm. Like something is winding up in the shadows. I spent those days at Desmond's place pretending I was okay. I helped him fix a leaky faucet, ran errands with my niece, even grilled dinner for the family like nothing in my life was slowly burning behind me. But the truth is, I was checking my phone more than I'd ever admit. Not because I wanted her back, but because I didn't believe she was done. Ivy never left things unfinished. On the 4th day, it came. Not a text. Not a call. An email. Subject line. Confession. Please read this. I stared at it for 20 minutes before I clicked. Every ounce of me wanted to delete it, to act like I'd never seen it. But curiosity is a poison you sip, even when you know it's going to rot something inside you. The email was longer than I expected. No hi. No dear. Just right into it. "Ivy, I didn't plan for things to go the way they did. I didn't plan to hurt you. I was just trying to feel something again. Anything. I know that's not an excuse. It's just the truth. Tyler wasn't supposed to be real. He was a reaction. A mirror I wanted to hold up to you and say, see what you're missing. But the truth is, I was the one who was missing. Missing something in myself. The version of me I liked. The one who felt attractive, wanted, clever. I stopped feeling that at home. And I blamed you for it, which wasn't fair. Tyler made me feel seen. But only for 5 minutes. After that, he just made me feel used. Because that's all it was. He never respected me. He liked the idea of me. And the second I stopped being that shiny idea, he got bored. You were never boring, Lenard. You were safe. And I broke that safety like it meant nothing. I betrayed someone who never once betrayed me. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just need you to know that I see it now, what I did, who I became, and how much I lost when I underestimated you. I read it twice. Not because I wanted to, but because I didn't believe it the first time. This was Ivy, the same Ivy who could gaslight a priest into apologizing. The same woman who once said, maybe you're too sensitive, when I cried during my mom's funeral slideshow. And now she was admitting fault? No manipulation. No spin. Just raw, typed out regret. I didn't know how to respond. I didn't want to respond. But it messed with my head. I sat on the porch that night, the glow of Desmond's security light humming above me, and I wondered, what game is she playing? Because Ivy never apologizes without a reason. I forwarded the email to myself, then deleted it from the inbox. Just in case. Just so I wouldn't read it again. But that wasn't the end. The next morning, Desmond's wife, Kendra, handed me a letter. This came for you, she said. Delivered by hand. No return address. Just my name, written in Ivy's looping, confident handwriting. Inside was a photograph, an old one, from our second anniversary. We were sitting on the hood of my car at the lake, eating Chinese takeout. My arm around her. Her face against my shoulder. And on the back, just 5 words in black ink. I didn't know it was love. No signature. No explanation. Just that. I put the photo on the table. Walked into the guest bathroom. Stared at myself in the mirror for 5 full minutes. What was she doing? Was this some twisted olive branch? A new manipulation tactic? Or worse, was it genuine? I went for a walk. No phone. Just air and sneakers and the sound of gravel under my feet. And by the time I got back, Desmond was standing on the porch, arms crossed, face tight. You got another visitor, he said. I stepped up, and there she was. Ivy. On the edge of the driveway. No makeup. No heels. Just jeans and that gray hoodie she stole from me years ago. She looked smaller. Not physically. Just less like the version she always performed in public. She saw me. Took a breath. I'm not here to win you back, she said. I'm here to say what I should have said a long time ago. And then she took a step closer. I didn't move. Because sometimes, silence is louder than anything you can say. The thing about Ivy is that even when she's trying to be honest, she still edits the truth. She trims it down to what's palatable. She pre-chews her guilt so it goes down smoother. But that day, standing in front of me on my brother's gravel driveway, she looked like a woman who hadn't rehearsed. Her hands were shaking. Her voice had cracks in it. And for the first time in all our years together, she wasn't performing. I know you don't want to hear me out, she started, but I can't carry this anymore. She didn't wait for permission. She just kept going, like the words were burning her throat, and she had to get them out before they devoured her from the inside. I didn't sleep with him. I blinked. What? I didn't sleep with Tyler, she said again. He wanted to. I thought I wanted to, but I couldn't go through with it. I stood there, jaw tight, heartbeat thudding in my ears. I wanted to believe I was above caring. I wanted to pretend that this detail, this technicality, didn't matter. But it did. It mattered more than I wanted to admit. She looked down, voice quieter now. He told me I was overthinking it. That you'd probably cheated on me first anyway. That's what guys like him do. They assume everyone else is as shallow as they are. My arms stayed crossed. My mouth stayed shut. She looked up at me, eyes glassy. But the second I walked into his place, the second the door closed, I realized. It wasn't about you. It wasn't even about him. It was about me wanting to feel powerful. I wanted to feel like I mattered again. But I didn't. I just felt cheap. So I left. I walked out without saying a word, and I cried in my car like some drunk prom queen. I wanted to interrupt. I wanted to say, why are you telling me this now? But my voice betrayed me. I just stood there, rooted to the spot, barely breathing. I know that doesn't fix anything, she added, brushing a tear off her cheek. But you deserve the truth. Not because I want you back. but because you spent years being loyal to someone who didn't earn it. The silence that followed was brutal, heavy. My brother's screen door creaked open behind me, then softly shut again. He was giving us space, even if I wasn't sure I wanted it. After a while, I finally spoke. Why now? Ivy swallowed hard. Because for the first time, you're not chasing me. And I didn't know how lonely that would feel. There it was. The raw, unvarnished truth behind her visit. Not love, not reconciliation, just loneliness. And that was when everything truly shifted in me. Because I realized she still didn't understand what she had broken. It wasn't just trust. It wasn't just the marriage. It was the idea of us. The quiet comfort. The unspoken loyalty. The thousand little things I used to do without expecting credit. Waiting up for her when she was out late. Warming her coffee cup before she woke up. Researching her dad's favorite books so I'd always have something to say at family dinners. You can't rebuild that. Not with words. Not with tears. I'm not the same person you left, I said finally. And I don't think I want to be. She nodded slowly, like she'd already prepared herself for that answer. Can I leave something with you? She asked. I shrugged. What? She reached into her bag and pulled out a small photo album. Leather-bound. The kind people used before everything was digital. It's all of us. From before. I didn't want to throw it out, but I also can't look at it anymore. She handed it to me. Her fingers lingered on the edge like it hurt to let go. I took it, not because I needed it, but because I knew she did. She took a few steps back. I'm sorry, Leonard. Not just for the bar. Not just for Tyler. For all the ways I made you feel small. I watched her walk away, her steps slow, shoulders sagging. And that night, for the first time in weeks, I opened the photo album. I expected to feel bitter, angry, nostalgic, maybe, but all I felt was distance. Like I was watching someone else's life. Two strangers who once thought they'd found forever, but never learned how to survive the quiet in-between. And that's when I knew, no matter what she said, no matter what she regretted, I wasn't going back. The photo album stayed on the nightstand for a week. I didn't open it again. I didn't throw it out, either. It was just there, like a souvenir from a vacation you don't talk about anymore. Some things are better left untouched, not because they're sacred, but because revisiting them means risking getting stuck there again. Ivy didn't reach out after that. Not once. I think she finally understood I wasn't bluffing. That this wasn't one of our usual cycles where she pushes, I break, and we reset until the next explosion. This time I was out. Quietly, finally out. And with that came a strange sort of freedom. Not the movie montage kind, where you suddenly take up pottery or fly to Iceland. No, it was simpler. The kind of freedom that comes from choosing your own coffee creamer without worrying if someone will roll their eyes. From not double-checking if your laughter is too loud. From realizing you're allowed to enjoy your own company, and maybe even prefer it. Desmond offered to let me stay as long as I needed, but after 3 weeks, I told him I was moving out. Not far. Just enough space to feel like I was choosing something for myself. I found a small apartment near the park, nothing fancy. 1 bedroom. Old creaky floors. A window that caught the afternoon sun just right. And for the first time in what felt like years, I woke up without dread sitting on my chest. I started running again. Slowly. Bad form. Terrible shoes. But it felt like progress. I volunteered one weekend at a community food drive just because the flyer looked interesting. I wasn't trying to become a new person. I just wanted to remember who I was before I became a version of myself that only existed in someone else's shadow. And then, when I wasn't looking, when I'd stopped needing it, something happened. Her name was Elise. She worked at a used bookstore I wandered into on a rainy Wednesday, mostly to kill time and avoid going home. She was reshelving a copy of Catch 22 and accidentally knocked over an entire display of cookbooks. I helped her stack them back up, made a dumb joke about Julia Child being aggressive in paperback form, and somehow we ended up talking for 45 minutes. She wasn't flashy, not performative. She didn't dominate the room, but she listened, and laughed, and asked questions without making me feel like I was being interrogated. She didn't ask if I was single. She asked if I liked lemon bars. I said I didn't know, and she said, then we'll find out. We had coffee the next day, then a walk, then lunch the following weekend. It was never dramatic, never high stakes, just real. I didn't tell her everything right away. I didn't trauma dump or overshare. But eventually, when the time felt right, I told her the truth. About Ivy, about the bar, About how I'd once been the kind of man who confused silence with peace. She didn't pity me. She didn't flinch. She said, "Sounds like you've been through hell. But you didn't stay there. That counts for something." And for the first time, I believed that it did. We're not moving fast. We're not labeling anything. But when we sit in silence, it doesn't feel like tension. It feels like breathing. The last time Ivy reached out, and I mean the very last time, she sent one final message. "I hope you're okay." I mean that. I never replied. Not out of spite, but because I didn't need to. Some endings don't need loud doors slamming or dramatic goodbyes. Sometimes you just walk away. And in the quiet that follows, you find a version of yourself you almost forgot existed. I did. And for once, I like who he's becoming.